Games Workshop's Basement, hosted by John Kirk.
Welcome to another Danny's. Well, we're going to talk about Grim After Dark hot takes, not just Danny's hot takes. It's just ours, right?
Just Danny's hot takes.
So I'm joined, of course, by Tech Priest Dickie here. Hey, Dickie, how are you?
Hello. I'm so excited. Yeah.
Dickie, are you ready to talk about some old world? Because I'm like frothing at the mouth over here.
We've had this in our hot little hands, and we haven't been able to say anything. And it's like, oh man, I just want to talk about it so much. And
literally killing me on the inside.
Yeah,
I
really
totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a lot of information. It is the most amount of information.
Exactly. And so, yeah, that's kind of one thing I'd like to bring up as well. So this is going to be part of an ongoing series about Warhammer: The Old World. We're going to initially review some of the armies, and then maybe we'll start taking on some of the rules and things like that as well.
Yep.
So the first one that we're doing, the one that we're doing today, is about the Ravening Hordes book that's will be released, called for pre-order from Games Workshop on January 6th, who were kind enough to send us a digital copy of the rules so that we could peruse them. And oh boy, am I excited about this game.
Whew. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even.
It's a lot though.
Let's not wait. Let's just go.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So we're going to start with Ravening Hordes. So what is Ravening Hordes? Ravening Hordes is a collection of 4 army lists for Orcs and Goblins, Warriors of Chaos, Beastmen, Bray Herds, and Tomb Kings of Khemri. So each of these contains the grand army for each of these different lists. And so we're going to be reviewing the Grand Army, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the other armies when we go over the Tomb Kings ones, because they have an arcane journal that's also released, and that'll have some additional army lists in it. So yeah, let's talk about, let's just get right into it. We're talking about Ravening Hordes. We're going to talk about Orcs and Goblins, the keynote Ravening Horde, right? So yeah, Orcs and Goblins, huge variety of units, right? Nothing really has been dropped out of their list. Everything is still available in one way or another. And so the way that we're going to organize these and kind of go through the art, like reviewing the army list itself, I'm going to talk about 3 of probably some of the better units for the list.
Yep.
And then I'll talk about a magic item and one of the spells for the army as well. So the first one we have here is we're going to talk about Orcs and Goblins. Orcs and Goblins, the top 3 units for them are Boar Boys, Black Orcs, and the Night Goblin Squig Herd was one that I really liked, which maybe wouldn't be something that you would think about right off the bat as being an amazing unit, but it plays into the army so well.
Okay.
So Boar Boys, in this edition of Warhammer Fantasy, cavalry is pretty good again, I think, and Boar Boys really exemplify what a cheap, good cavalry unit looks like.
Yep.
So they start off at 15 points a model, so pretty inexpensive. They have a pretty average stat line, 3s across the board mostly. Orcs, initiative 3 now, not initiative 2. That's a really large change. So Orcs will be striking before a lot of other people now, especially if they charge, where they get that initiative bonus. Boar Boys, though, 3s across the board, leadership 6, leadership 7 on the boss. War Boars, weapon skill 3, strength 3 as well. So they start off with hand weapons, light armor, not a big deal. Well, you can replace their hand weapons with cavalry spears. Okay, gonna do that. We'll give them shields too. Why not? Those are both a point of model. And then you can also take heavy armor for a point of model. Now, War Boars have the armored hide rule, which means they get an additional armor save. So you're looking at 3+ armor save cavalry, which is some of the better cavalry armor in the game. There's only a few units, like maybe 1 per army, that is looking at a 2+ armor save, and only if they have like barded steeds. Pretty much, you're looking at 4+ as being the best armor save on most units in the game.
Okay.
2+ being the absolute best. Anyway, they have all the good rules. They have Furious Charge, so they get an extra attack on the charge. They have Counter Charge, so if you charge them and you're far enough away, they can charge you as well. They have Swift Stride. So they're getting to roll an extra dice on their charge, and they also have a rule called Tusker Charge, which means that they have their boars get extra AP on the turn they charge, which is pretty nice. So great unit, a lot of attacks. You can upgrade them to big guns too if you want, which gives them +1 strength in combat. So now they're like strength 5 with spears. So there's a lot of different options you can play. They're a great unit. Black Orcs, another amazing unit. There have always been the elite orcs, but they've always been kind of like maybe a little bit overpriced and pretty not great. Well, they got a real upgrade in this edition. They got full plate armor. Which is really nice. And 12 points a model for like weapon skill 4, strength 4, toughness 4, infantry is really good. The Choppas rule means that they're getting an extra AP on the charge and also rerolling 1s to wound. So when you give them great weapons or anything like that, they can really put out a lot of damage. Now, these guys did lose the ability to switch weapons between rounds of combat, which is something
armed
they had in 8th
to
edition.
The teeth.
Yeah, armed to the teeth. That's right. Good recall, Dickie. That's exactly
I'm
correct.
getting back, baby. I'm back.
Yeah. But they kind of traded that off for getting Furious Charge, which gives them an extra attack on the charge. Really nice for them. And then they also have a rule called one thing about Orcs and Goblins that's very different than it was before is there's no animosity. But most of the units are impetuous. Do you know what impetuous is, Dickie? You want to collect Bretonians. What is impetuous?
Well, back in the day, back in 6th edition, impetuous means you had to charge when something was in front of you.
That's right. Well, the rule didn't change that much.
All right.
You have to roll a d6. On a 1 through 3, you have to charge. On a 4+, you don't. So sometimes you have to charge. Well, Black Orcs have a rule called Quell Impetuosity. So most Orc units in the book have impetuous.
Right.
So they're trying to charge stuff maybe when you don't want them to. So there's a little bit of unreliability there. But Black Orcs just quell impetuous within 6 inches of themselves. So you can kind of set your lineup to be immune to that rule, which is really nice. They don't have to break heads anymore. It's really great.
That's a big deal. Like the biggest thing with orcs was they were kind of random. And if you rolled that 1 on animosity, man, your best laid plan was Dunskies. So now you get some Blackguard characters hanging out, and oh baby,
man, you got a stew going.
Yeah, ooh, that's exciting. Okay, man, I'm so ready. What's next?
Okay, the final unit that we're going to talk about, and there's so many units in here that are good to talk about. I mean, Angler Twigs are still very good. Wyverns are good again. Like all these units have a role, and I can see you pretty much playing with almost any unit in this book, which is awesome.
Nice.
But let's talk about squig herds a little bit.
Sure.
So you only get to target the squigs, like the handlers, if they are in combat with you, and they automatically get pushed all the way to the back rank when you fight with squigs, because the squigs push forward and they push the handlers to the back. So it's really hard.
Who would want to be in front of squigs? Really,
I wouldn't want to be in front of any squigs. So maybe they're the ones that are going back to the back. Anyway, the nice thing about these guys is that they're a skirmish unit if you want them to be, or they're open order, so you can have them be ranked, which is really nice. So you can kind of choose how you want them to be in the game, so they can get a rank bonus or they can not. And then they also have a rule called Warband. Now, almost every single unit in the Orcs and Goblins book has the Warband rule. Warband is a universal special rule. It's common across a bunch of different armies, and it kind of represents units that are a little bit on the wild side. But the nice thing about them is it does two things. The first thing is it replicates the Skaven rule called Strength in Numbers a little bit.
Yeah.
So they get to add their rank bonus to their leadership.
That's very strong.
Really good. So that means that even like the Night Goblin Squig herds, for instance, like they're still going to be leadership 8, even though they're already immune to psychology, which is good enough for me.
Yeah.
they're going to be leadership 8, which is really nice. The other thing that it does is it gives you reroll charges, and that's insanely powerful.
Yeah.
So those two things make it one of maybe the best rules in the whole game, and so it's one of the reasons why I kind of am hitting on that right now, because all the units I've already described also have warband.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way to pass off your leadership and get units that are maybe going to run away a lot more, a lot less, and reroll the charge on your units that want to beat some people up.
Yeah.
But yeah, Squig Herds being impetuous, but being able to ignore that for Black Orcs being around, really powerful. And maybe you just want them to get into combat, though, because Squigs have 2 strength 5 attacks each at AP -1 with Armor Bane 1. So they can actually do quite a bit of work.
Yeah.
And at initiative 4 is also pretty fast.
Yeah, it's really fast.
Yeah.
I know we're not going to talk a lot about the nuance of the game mechanics, but I think it's important to explain to people. So you talked about being able to pay for skirmish or rank and file. That's something that's relatively new in this edition.
Yeah, this is really big. So units, often units that are skirmishers will have the skirmishers special rule, but they'll also have the open order special rule. And when you have those 2 different formation rules, you can choose at the start of the game which formation you want to start in, and you can also reform into that formation as the game goes on.
Nice.
So if you want to do that, you can, but it's a really nice, it gives you some versatility and allows you to kind of customize a unit for how you think it's going to be best used. Like, I might want to rank, because skirmishers don't get rank bonus, right?
Yeah.
So I might want a rank bonus, like a rank bonus for my unit, if I was afraid that they might get charged and I might lose combat that way or something similar. So I probably would rank them up in open order, and open order is different than closed order, which is kind of like the standard rank and file. Open order, closed order automatically gets +1 to combat resolution, while open order lets you do a free 90-degree turn at the end of a regular move. So it kind of gives you a little bit, they're not quite, they're kind of an in-between skirmishers and close order units, which is pretty nice. So depending on how you want them to be, it just gives you a few options.
Yeah, there's just a lot of, in reading the books, there's a lot of variation in the list that you can add just with points. Just adding I'm going to give this unit skirmisher, or I'm going to give this unit close order or open order.
And potentially those are upgrades that either a certain number of units can buy, or it's just a way that you can choose to upgrade the unit. A lot of units have an upgradable ability to buy other special rules, which I really like.
Yeah. Or drilled, you'll see that a lot. That's a really good ability that maybe
we'll
talk about later.
Yeah, drilled, stubborn, veteran.
Yeah.
Those are all really common rules that you can buy for people. For instance, for orc boar chariots, they can buy war paint, so you can make them savage orc boar chariots, which is pretty cool.
That is super awesome.
Oh man. Yeah, but let's talk a magic item. The one I'm going to talk about is called Wallapa's One-Hit Wonder.
Okay.
And it's a 15-point magic weapon, goblins only. It has strikes first, which means that they get to go at initiative 10. Yeah. And then once per game, you can use it, because obviously it's one-hit wonder, so you only get to use it one time. But it makes the guy's strength 10, AP -3, and gives him strikes first. So
wow.
If you get charged by somebody or something like that, this is a great little one to pop, especially on a unit that's maybe more of a suicide unit. Really good magic item for them to use.
That's very cool.
Especially only for only 15 points.
It's only 15 points for the one-hit wonder.
Yeah, that one-hit wonder, dude.
That's all you just need once. You just need to do it once.
That's right. It only needs to work once.
That's right.
And that's the thing with fantasy too, that a lot of people don't necessarily think about. In 40K, you're probably going to use a power fist, if you have that for a combat character, a lot of combats. Yep. If you make it into combat, you're probably going to use more. You're probably going to get to use it for more than one turn. Well, in fantasy, you may not get to fight more than once or twice in the game. So using these abilities are really strong.
Yep, I would agree.
As far as spell goes, every faction has some unique spells. So for orcs, they have 4 unique spells. They have a lore of Gork and a lore of Mork for orcs and goblins respectively, and each of those has 2 signature spells attached to it, which means instead of taking your lore specific spell, you can take one of these instead. Now, Orcs and goblins obviously use Wa magic, but they can use other stuff too.
Oh.
I bet you weren't thinking that. Orc shamans can use battle magic and elementalism, and goblin shamans can also use elementalism as well if they want to.
Again, more variation on creating lists. You have different ideas, different concept, different list builds. Oh man,
100%. And I gotta go over Lore of Mork, and I have to go over maybe my favorite spell.
Yeah,
maybe in the whole game. I don't know. It's very cool. It's called Itchy Nuisance.
Another classic spell.
Yeah,
okay.
Of course. Yeah, it's a redo. So it's a hex with a casting value of 9+ and a range of 15 inches. Until the start of your next turn, the target enemy unit suffers a minus D3 modifier to both its toughness and initiative characteristics.
That's really good.
So obviously you're going to be wounding better. They're going to be going slower. They're not going to want to charge stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really a great spell. You'll be able to use it for shooting to make targets easier to wound. So it has a lot of versatility. It does have a shorter range, and you can't cast it into combat. But I think it's a really, really, it's a potentially a very powerful spell. Very
cool.
Yep.
Man. Oh. I have a feeling that every time we talk about something, I'm gonna want to build an army that we're talking about. I'm like, oh, I could just see an orc and goblin army in my head now. So, oh man. Okay. Cool.
Well, let's talk about an army list that I made.
Let's do it.
Okay. So the army list that I made is a night goblin only list. I only took night goblins and squigs. So it's thematic. I think it's kind of cool. It might even be good. I'm not sure though. I'd have to play it a couple of times.
Okay.
But so we start off. We have a night goblin war boss on a giant cave squig with the one-hit wonder, as you do.
Yeah, I mean.
And then we have another war boss on foot with a great weapon. That guy's my general.
Yeah.
So he's a heady leadership of 6.
Jesus.
Which he hands out to all the night goblins within 12 inches, and then they get to add their rank bonus. So normally you max out rank bonus at +2, but if you have the horde roll, which night goblins do, you can do an extra one. So that makes everything leadership 9. That seems a lot better, right?
This seems like a better leadership, yeah.
Yeah. And then we've got 2 level 2 night goblin shamans, a night goblin big boss with a battle standard, and then another big boss on a giant cave squig. So just another guy bouncing around causing problems.
Yep.
That's what this war boss on the giant cave squig does. Is he just runs around, he eats up little units. He fights like fast cavalry, that kind of chaff.
Yeah.
And then we have 3x40 night goblins with
40.
Yeah, 40 night goblins.
A lot of night goblins.
It's a lot of night goblins.
Okay.
They don't have spears or anything like that. I just gave them hand weapons, and they have shields. So they've got a banner stand. They've got a standard musician and champion. They also have netters, which means if which do exactly the same thing they did before. So you roll a dice on an enemy unit in face-to-face contact with them, and on a 2+, they get -1 strength.
Oh,
but if you roll 1, then the night goblins net themselves, and they're -1 strength.
Womp womp.
Yeah. And then each unit has 1 fanatic. I could take 3, but they're 25 points apiece, which is a lot. And I just thought that 1 in each kind of gives me some options. They don't come out when you get within 8 inches anymore. You just place them in any strategy phase. You get to place them within 3 inches of the night goblin unit.
Okay.
So you can do some cool stuff with this. Basically, if you kind of block your guys off, you can make your opponent charge onto them, which is really brutal because they take D6 hits and the fanatic doesn't die anymore. It just pops out the back of the unit. It could just go through everyone again, which is awesome.
Does it have the random move feature?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Scatter dice and 2d6 inches. It moves that far in that direction. If it rolls any doubles or it contacts any piece of terrain, it dies.
But man, it can lay waste to heavy armored knights.
Oh yeah, it's strength 5 -3 AP, D6 auto hits. Yeah, it hurts when they get hit by
mama.
those.
That's awesome.
So then I've got 2 units of 20 2 squig herds with 20 squigs and 4 herders.
That's a lot of strength 5 attacks coming out.
Yeah, dude. I'm just thinking I just kind of line up my 40 guys, my 3 squads of 40 in the middle, and then I just have these guys kind of hanging out on the flanks.
Yeah.
And then to drive you towards me, I've got a couple of bolt throwers.
Yeah.
Love to see those.
Yeah.
2x5 squig hoppers, which are great little distraction units, and they actually hit decently hard. They have impact hits.
Okay.
and they are strength 5. So they're kind of fun. I have a Doom Diver. Gotta have a Doom Diver.
Gotta.
And then I have Mangler Squigs.
2 Mangler Squigs.
Yeah.
This army seems huge.
Well, it's all goblins, man.
I know, but like they're actually not bad. Like,
no, I know. Yeah, see.
Okay, all right.
2 Mangler Squigs and then a Goblin Stone Thrower.
That's a lot of artillery too.
It's got all kinds of stuff.
Dude, that's so good.
I might drop the 2 level 2s for a level 4.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm thinking as I'm looking through this, I like it a lot. And yeah, I think it does a lot of different stuff, and I think it fights decently. Yeah. It has enough shooting to make people come towards it, and then when you get there, it just kind of messes with you.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk about is great weapons in this edition. So the fight last keyword, I guess, or special rule. So it's changed a bit from its 8th edition or 6th edition counterpart. So if you don't mind, I can go through it.
No. Yeah, no problem. So great weapons now, what they are is they take you to initiative 1. That's what Always Strikes Last is. Always Strikes Last is initiative 1, but before modifiers. So
that's very important. Yeah. It's
really, really important because when you charge, you don't get strikes first. You get +1 initiative for each inch you charge.
Yeah.
So or from to the front of your enemy. If you charge them in the flank, you can get up to +4.
Yeah.
But from the front, it's +3 max. Yeah. So you're very quickly going to get up to initiative 10 on some of these units like elves and that kind of stuff that have lances and that kind of. So like there's some ways to really kind of buff initiative, especially with like different special rules that you might have. So I really like that it's before modifiers, so it's not always your striking last.
Yeah, it literally. So when I'm going to go and talk about Bretonnians because that's what I'm super excited about.
Yeah,
Questy Knights were always so bloody useless because they had great weapons and a giant horse to make a charge, and then they got to fight last, so they ended up dying after they charged. Now they actually have an opportunity to swing before the bad guy.
So like if they charge to the front, they're usually initiative 4.
Yeah.
And like some of the more elite troops in the game are initiative 4. So like most elves are initiative 4. At least to start with. And then like Chaos Warriors are initiative 4. So like I don't even think there's any elite Empire troops that have initiative 4. I think they're mostly initiative 3. So like you're striking before a lot of that stuff, which is really nice.
Tack on a little itchy nuisance there and all of it.
Right. Yeah. Hey, look, you got yourself a stew going, man.
Baby,
I kind of missed like how this army plays a little bit. So let me just talk about that really quick.
Okay.
They have the warband rule, and they have great toughness overall across the army for their point value. Orc boys are very cheap for toughness 4. But yeah, like they have a lot of fairly inexpensive troops with great toughness. They don't usually have a lot of armor. Maybe more than something like Beastmen, but probably less, but a lot less than most other armies.
Okay.
And impetuosity is a rough rule if you don't mitigate it. So like this Night Goblin list that I'm talking about, Night Goblins themselves are not impetuous.
Okay, I was gonna say.
But the squigs are. So I just have to watch out what I'm doing with those kind of. I can block off their charge and stuff like that, since like with random movers, so that they don't kind of charge into stuff that I don't want them to. This army wins typically through combined arms, but more focused on the melee portion of combined arms than the shooting portion. Like as opposed to Empire, which is usually a little bit more shooty than it is melee. These guys are more melee than they are shooty, but they get cheap war machines, and their war machines are pretty good. So they definitely have like a combined arms approach. They're taking cavalry, they're taking some shooting, they're taking some melee. So usually that's kind of how this army plays on the table. And they kind of leverage hitting hard and being cheap with kind of having maybe not the most durable units in the game.
But it seems like they're going to have a pretty juicy leadership with the
they can until you start taking off those ranks.
Okay. Yeah.
Or you're getting them in the flank. That's going to be a bad time, because if they get disrupted, right, through either that or like first charge that a lot of knights have, like they could be testing on some pretty bad leadership and get run down. So it works really well for panic, but it works a lot less good for break tests.
Okay, understood.
So yeah, that's Orcs and Goblins. Really cool army, huge model range. A lot of it is available through Gloomspite Gets or Worklands. So I think you have a lot of good ways to do GW models for these too, if you wanted to. It'll be interesting to see what kits they end up re-releasing for Orcs and Goblins when that time comes.
That's awesome.
So, yep.
Cool, man.
Let's talk about Warriors of Chaos.
Whew. All right.
The big boys.
The big boys.
Kind of an interesting comparison to Orcs and Goblins. These guys are different in so many ways.
They're the elite of the elite, right?
They are very elite. So we're talking like less than 50 models a lot of times, armies, which are totally playable. They have a lot of very good cavalry. They have great stats across the board, really good in that way. But let's talk about their three best units probably. Chosen Chaos Knights, not a surprise to probably anyone. If there are Chosen Chaos Knights, they're probably better than most anything else in the book, and they are. They have all the rules that you would expect a good unit to have for cavalry, which is like counter charge and first charge, which is really nice.
Did we want to talk about counter charge? It's a new rule.
Yeah, basically countercharge works. How countercharge works is if somebody charges you and they're not really close to you, you can countercharge them and you move like D3 plus 1 inches closer to them, and then they complete their charge and you both count as charging. Important because for countercharge, that D3 roll is super valuable. If you don't roll a good roll, remember your initiative might tank comparatively to your opponent, so there's the chance that you're not going to go first. You got caught out, and they're gonna get to hit you first, and that's real bad in fantasy because with no step up rule, if the guys that you lose from the front rank, from guys from your enemy killing you, don't get to fight. So its initiative is very important in this edition.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and Chaos Knights have plenty of attacks to make sure you don't have any front rank left to fight them with. Each guy is rocking 2 attacks, which is very unusual. They also rock the full plate shield Barded Steed for a 2+ armor.
A proper 2+ armor save.
Yep. And they also have the Chaos Armor rule, which Chaos Armor gives you a ward save now based on the value of Chaos Armor. So most Chaos Warriors of Chaos characters have a 5+ ward, whereas some of the elite units will have a 6+ ward. So like Chosen, these guys, also I think like Forsaken have Chaos Armor.
These guys are just like Bretonians, but they don't have to pray to the lady to get their ward save. What the heck?
No, yeah, well, yeah, and they don't have to do that stupid lance formation either, dude.
Okay. All right.
The lance formation is very good.
It's fair.
But these guys won't use it because they don't have to.
Fair enough. Of
course, a thing you would expect in this list, Chaos characters are awesome. They have the best stats of pretty much any model in the game right now. There's not really a lot that can step to them. Chaos Lords are like weapon skill 7, strength 5, toughness 5, 4 wounds, 5 attacks. So they're like the best of the best. They're pretty close to like a Bretonian Duke.
Yeah. Okay.
Which they previewed. Yeah, they're very good. And then Dragon Ogres. I list Dragon Ogres here because so there's one slight issue with the game, like out of the box release, with duplicating units, because there isn't really a rule that prevents you from duplicating units, and Dragon Ogres can be bought in units of 1. And so these guys make awesome little missiles because they're immune to psychology, so they don't take panic tests from other units running away close to them. They have good armor saves, like they can have a 3+ armor save because you can buy heavy armor for them, and a great weapon, so they're like strength 7 with their great weapon. They're very good for their points. I hope that they decide to make some kind of rule where you a rule of 3 or something similar.
Yeah.
Because I think that would really help the game out a lot. Yeah. I think that'll probably be pretty common practice if there's going to be tournaments for this game.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about the Infernal Puppet for a magic item. The Infernal Puppet is an arcane item. Dickie, do you know what this thing does?
No, I have no idea.
Oh my God, Dickie, this thing is so good. So basically, whenever a wizard tries to cast a spell within 24 inches of the bearer, they can use the Infernal Puppet. When they use the Infernal Puppet, their opponent has to roll an extra dice when they're casting and drop the highest result.
Oh, no.
So since all spells are on 2d6, well, except when you're getting Infernal Puppeted, they're having to roll 3 dice and drop the high dice, which makes a lot more spells fail. Not only does it make more spells fail, it makes their spells go off on lesser values, so they're easier for you to dispel. So I think it's a gimme in every list for this army. It's 50 points.
This can be only be a once per game item, though, right? Like, they can't be doing it every turn.
How about every spell that you cast?
Oh,
it's not even like once per turn. It's like every spell that you cast within 24 inches of this guy. You don't even have to have the line of sight. That's not part of it.
Come on.
Yep, it's right. It's an insanely good item.
All right.
So, like, how do Warriors of Chaos play? Like, we talked a little bit about some of their best units, that kind of stuff. Oh, what spells. Spell? Yeah. I didn't talk about spells. Warriors of Chaos have 4 unique spells, which is more than a lot of other armies. They have 1 for each god, and 1 for Undivided. If you don't take a mark, they have Winds of Chaos. I like the Nurgle one a lot. It just lets you pick a unit and give them +1 toughness.
Okay. That's really good.
That's a great ability. Yeah. Slanesh is also very good. Slanesh is a 12-inch hex of always strikes last.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's really good too.
Oh no.
So, yeah, but army plays, generally speaking, pretty well. Their strengths, their stat lines are amazing. Strength 4, toughness 4, high weapon skill across the board. They have good armor. A lot of units can take heavy armor or have heavy armor intrinsically in their profile. But they do have some disadvantages. Their cost. Yeah. They cost a lot of points. Most warriors are going to be between 15 points a model and 17 points a model. So that's a lot of points for a 1 wound infantry dude with a 4-up save at best. Yeah. Because Warriors of Chaos have heavy armor, only Chosen get full plate.
Okay.
So the normal warriors are going to be a little bit less durable than them, but there's so many ways that you can buff stack on these guys to make them more durable that I don't think it'll be a real issue. But they're going to cost a lot of points. Like, that's a 400 point block before characters, that kind of thing, like for a real block of Chaos Warriors, which we'll see in my list here.
Yeah.
And inflexibility. This army does one thing: it punches you in the face, and it punches you until you stop moving, but it doesn't do anything else. They have limited shooting units, just a Hell Cannon, and like maybe some Marauder Horsemen with throwing weapons, but that's it. They're not going to win the game unless they're fighting you. So if you're not fighting them, they're not going to win the game. And they're going to try and press that point, but you have some options.
Interesting.
But yeah, that's how Chaos is going to win. They're going to win the game by killing you. So just make sure that they don't, and that'll help you a lot in games against Warriors.
Game.
Yeah, easy enough, right?
Yeah.
Or just let them kill you slowly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about this.
Bows.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Or better yet, cannons and other stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this list. So there's 2 characters in this list, and they're both very good. There's a level 4 with Mark of Nurgle, which Mark of Nurgle in this is so +1 toughness. Mark of Nurgle in this edition is, in combat you have to reroll 6s to hit them.
Okay. Oh, that's really good.
It's really good.
Oh, wow.
It's not quite as good as -1 to hit, but it's pretty close. So especially when they're weapon skill 5 already. So you're hitting them on 4s or maybe 5s if you have weapon skill 2.
Yeah.
I also gave my level 4 here the Enchanting Aura, which means that units in base to base with this unit always strikes last.
Okay.
And then also the Infernal Puppet, of course. Gotta have that.
Gotta have it.
Gotta have it. And then the Aspiring Champion. So Aspiring Champion is equivalent to a Lord level character for most other races. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. He's an Exalted Champion, not an Aspiring Champion. My bad. I wrote the wrong thing there. He's Exalted, which you can do. So imagine a Lord level Battle Standard Bearer, and then you have a Chaos Champion here. So I gave him a Demonic Steed, which gives him an extra wound.
Yeah.
So he's 4 wounds now.
Okay.
And he's monstrous cav, so he can but that lets him join other units, so he can still join the Chosen Knights just fine. He's got a lance and a shield, and then he has Diabolic Splendor, which gives his unit -1 to be hit from shooting attacks.
Okay.
And the Crown of Everlasting Conquest, which gives a 5-up regen. And he has Chaos Armor 5-up, so he's got a 3-up armor, 5-up ward save, and then also 5-up regen save after that. So you get to take all the saves.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he gives a bunch of combat res. And also attacks because he fights really well.
I would imagine.
And then we have 23 Chaos Warriors. So my plan was to run these guys 8 wide. And the Sorcerer goes in here. They've got Mark of Nurgle, they've got shields, they have halberds, and they have the Banner of Rage. The Banner of Rage gives them Frenzy, and they cannot lose Frenzy. So +1 attack on all their attacks, or +1 attack for them. So that makes them 2 attacks each because Warriors are down to 1 attack. Strength 5, -1 AP, Armor Bane 1 on halberds. And they get to go to initiative. So they're initiative 4. With you being always strikes last, they're always going Simo in the first round of combat.
Yeah, so an important distinction. So Frenzy in the olden days, you always had it. It just was a thing that you have. In this edition, you can actually lose Frenzy.
Oh, yeah. Yep. You can get the Frenzy beaten out of you again.
Yeah.
So if you lose combat, you lose Frenzy.
Yeah.
So these guys could absolutely lose Frenzy, but not before they get to hit you with a bunch of halberd attacks. These guys are great.
Nice. So we got some dogs.
Yep. Got to have the chaff here. So these guys are for redirecting charges or charging stupid units that you don't really want to fight, or just getting in the way, or blocking my guys from being able to charge.
Yeah.
So the other unit I took here, this is kind of a new one for me. I've got 2 new units in here I haven't actually seen on the table, but I'd like to see them because I think they're cool. 14 Chaos Marauders with full command, flails, Mark of Corn. Mark of Corn gives Frenzy. And Skirmish, because 0 to 1 unit of Marauders per 1,000 points can be skirmishers. So this unit can line up a lot of Marauders if you're close to me. So these guys kind of exist kind of behind the chariots, but next to the Chaos Warriors, and kind of if you charge them with something that good, these guys are my counter charge to that. So 2 attacks each at strength 5, -2 AP means that they're going to do a lot of damage when they charge. And they don't have always strikes last, so they're going to get the full initiative bonus of whatever they roll. Marauders also have Warband, so they get to reroll charges.
Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
Chosen Knights, we talked about them. They're amazing. I chose for Mark of Undivided on these guys, which is reroll Fear, Terror, and Panic checks. I think that's totally fine on them. I just didn't want to pay the points to give them an extra abilities. And then I took 3 single chariots of Slaanesh. Slaanesh is +1 initiative in the first round of combat, and they ignore panic. So I just get to ignore all the panic that I was worried about from like dogs running through them or other units breaking around them. And now they just get to charge you and fight you at +1 initiative.
I was going to say that initiative is such a big deal that's a big buff. Yeah.
So those warriors, when they charge, are +4 to initiative, like with their halberds, because the guys in the back have halberds. So initiative 8 is a pretty good stat.
Pretty good.
Yep. And then we have one unit. This is a weird unit. 1 unit of 4 Chaos Spawn, and they're a spawn of Slaanesh. And that gives them always strikes first. So yeah. So it's 4 guys. I really like this unit. I kind of discovered it today because I hadn't really honestly made like a hard Warriors of Chaos list yet. And so I was like, what does Spawn do? And then I looked again, I'm like, oh, these guys are insanely powerful.
Yeah.
So they have random movement 2d6, which means if they hit you and they move 2d6, they get to fight you, they count as charging.
Yeah, there's no charge reactions to these guys. They just come.
Exactly. And there's nothing that says in there that it counts as a charge in the quarter that you started in. So if you roll really good, you can just kind of move into somebody's flank and charge them.
Yeah.
And each guy has D6 strength 4 attacks, and with always strikes first, with armor bane 2. So on 6s to wound, you're -2 AP. Great. They're unbreakable. Great. They have stomp attacks. Great. Like, so they do all kinds of stuff, and they're like, this unit is only like a little bit more than 200 points. And it has 12 unbreakable wounds at toughness 5 with heavy armor. So they actually, I think that they'll do plenty of work. I'm excited to try that unit out. I think it's actually kind of decent.
Yeah, that sounds scary.
So, yeah, you couldn't take Chaos Mons in more than once, and now you can. And I kind of like, maybe this is cool.
You were baiting me with the whole Dragon Ogre thing, and then you hit me with Chaos Spawn and units of.
Yeah, I didn't put any Dragon Ogres in this list. If I were to change something around, I'd probably change them for Dragon Ogres. But I think that this is this unit would be an interesting thing to try out for sure.
Yeah, man, that's some elite stuff right there. Holy,
I know. Like there are 3 hammers.
Yeah,
and then like 6 units that are like kind of chaff, the chariots and the warhounds, and then you have the unit of Chaos Spawn, which is kind of an anvil.
Yeah, like I'm just like, how do you deal with the Chaos Spawn? You charge them their initiative 10, punching
with 4d6 attacks.
That's scary stuff.
Yeah, I think it's at least interesting. And that's before if you like there's magic that you can buff them with too. So there's a bunch of different things that you can do.
I wanted to talk about the Warhounds because we were playing a game and it was interesting. Beasts, they're not allowed to use the leadership of the general anymore.
Correct. So
that's a new change.
That's a great change because I think it makes these units that are a little like these chaff units that are a little maybe too cheap. It gives you a counter against them. The other nice thing about Warhounds, and this is a negative for them, and I think this is good. Warhounds, any unit that has flaming attacks causes fear in any war beasts. So Warhounds are war beasts. So like they have to make a leadership test to charge units that have flaming attacks.
Yep.
Which is I think great.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah,
they should be scared of fire.
Fire's scary, man.
Yeah. Dude, that's an awesome list. Man, we got to try that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the other Chaos Army in this book. Beastmen, Brayherds.
New name, baby.
These guys they're so cool. I love Beastmen. The look is cool.
Yeah.
I love the fluff. Like they lurk in these forests and they're kind of just like a bunch of orphans that the Empire threw in the woods and like have bred out there and mutated and are
weird. Yeah.
Ready to eat people.
Yeah.
So the top 3 units that I chose for them are chariots, minotaurs, and harpies.
Sure.
Chariots are a really cheap, good unit for Beastmen Brayherds. They hit pretty hard for what they are. And they have decent leadership because they have Mark of Chaos Undivided, so they get to reroll failed panic, fear, and terror checks, which is great in an army that has bad leadership.
Okay.
Minotaurs are exactly what you would expect them to be. They are one of the most hard-hitting units in the whole game. They have probably more attacks than any other unit, I think, per model.
Love it.
They can they can get to 6 attacks like no problem.
6 attacks each.
Yeah, 6 attacks each.
Plus a stomp.
Yeah, plus I don't think they have stomp. I think they have impact hits.
Boom.
Which is better.
Okay.
Right?
All right, fine.
Yeah. They have a rule called foe render. Foe render is when if they have just normal hand weapons, if they pass their Primal Fury test. So that's kind of the rule that they have still. They still have Primal Fury. Primal Fury is a leadership test, and if you pass it, you get to reroll 1s to hit. If you pass it with doubles for units that have a rule called Blood Rage, they get Frenzy.
Okay.
So until they lose it, so which is great. So there's a lot of interesting kind of play behind that. Minotaurs have the Minotaur characters have a rule. The Blood Greed rule means that they get +2 attacks from Frenzy instead of +1. So yeah, it's real easy to get them to 6 attacks with 2 hand weapons.
Okay.
Anyway, so if they pass Primal Fury with Foe Render, they get -2 AP on their close combat attacks, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. Ooh. And then finally, I put down Harpies, and I think Harpies might be like the best chaff unit in the game. They're 11 points a model. They have Scout. They're not war beasts. They're just infantry, so they can use your leadership. They fly. And they have 2 base attacks each at strength 3. So they have like pretty crappy leadership on their own. But 2 strength 3 attacks and the ability to charge very far because their movement 10 fly means that like enemy war machines are not safe from them at all ever. And yeah, 55 points for that unit is really, really good.
Need that
Um,
chapter.
as far as magic items go, the one that I'm thinking of is the one that I like the most, because Warriors of Chaos also have gifts of the gods. Well, Beastmen have mutations. But the Beastman mutation that I really like is called Slugskin, and it's 50 points, and it makes the unit the bearer joins -1 to hit.
Oh.
In combat, in shooting, everything.
Oh no, that's really good.
It's really good. And then spells, they have a couple of spells. They have, I think it's Transformation of Kadon again. And that lets them, that like buffs your Sorcerer, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken that before, and it's been really fun. It gives him plus D6 strength and plus D6 attacks.
Oh.
But if you roll a 6, then he takes a wound with no armor save.
Boo-hoo, you just mulched whatever you touched, so I'm sure you're going to be happy about that.
Well, if you roll a 6, you get nothing.
Oh, okay. Okay,
so,
you just hurt yourself. So roll everything other than a 6 and you'll be fine.
Yeah, roll a 5, dude. That's what you want. Then he's got 7 attacks. He's pretty good. Unless he's frenzied, then he has 8. But that's that Slugskin, an awesome item. That spell is a great spell, and they have 2 other spells that are equally cool.
Oh man. Okay.
Yep. How do Beastmen Greyherds play though? They also take advantage of Warband. Most all of their units have Warband, which is awesome. Minotaurs have it, Gore Herds have it, Bestigor have it. It's just rerolling charges is such a good rule. Gotta love it. And then they have a lot of skirmishing units. So the army kind of fights still in a skirmishy way.
Yep.
You can take all your Gore Herds can either be open order or skirmishers, depending if you want the rank bonus or not. I've been playing it where I usually rank up the unit with my general, and then I take the other unit with like my Great Bray Shaman, because I've been running 2 Gore Herds. I want to run them skirmishing, just so I can get the most number of models in base to base as possible. They do have weaknesses. Like there's no armor saves to speak of unless you're taking Dragon Ogres, which they can also take. No real armor to speak of at all. And their leadership is bad. It's bad. Their leadership 8 at best. So like even the best lord has leadership 8. So you're rolling 8s is tough. Now, a lot of stuff has Mark of Undivided, and that helps a lot. But it doesn't solve it's still a huge issue. So I think that can be difficult for them. How they win? This army is like Warriors. It punches you in the face, but it does it more tactfully. Like they're gonna ask you if it's okay first. They're gonna ask for consent, and then they're gonna really go hard. When they hit, no, I'm just kidding. They go full beast mode all the time. They're very aggressive, but their movement is better, I think, than Warriors is.
Yeah.
So they can kind of play around. They can kind of play around with where they want to get into combat a little bit better. And they have a lot cheaper units than Warriors do.
Yeah.
But less quality, to be fair.
I would imagine this army has more small arms fire from Ungors.
Yeah, you can take Ungors with bows, so you can take skirmishers with bows. A lot of the monsters have breath weapons, so you can take like cockatrices or the Jabberslythe, and that gives you some ranged attacks. Also, you have the Cygor, which is technically like a war machine. He throws a stone thrower at people, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you can kind of build a more standoffish Beastmen list. I still think they're better off like getting stuck in and punching you to death.
Just a whole bunch of Minotaurs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, let's take a look at this list here.
Okay.
Not a bunch, but some.
Needs more.
So I got 3 characters.
Yeah.
I've got my Great Bray Shaman. He's level 4. He's got Slugskin for the -1 hit, and Talisman of Protection is a 5+ ward save. That's a generic item.
Pretty good.
I have a Gorbull. He's got a shield and the blackened plate. The blackened plate is full plate armor, which is a really nice little gem in there somewhere to give a character some armor. And then he has Gnarled Hide, which gives him an extra armor save, and a shield. So he's a 2+.
Wow.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
And then he has the Sword of Swiftness, which gives him always strikes first.
Initiative 10's good.
Yeah. Not bad.
Not bad.
And then we have the Beast Lord. And this guy is purely a vessel for the Horn of the First Beast, which lets anybody within 18 inches of him use his leadership for Primal Fury tests.
Oh, that's really good. Okay.
Which is really nice, yeah. Because most of these guys are not leadership 8 even. They're like leadership 7.
Okay.
So, yep. And so I gave him hand weapon and shield to take advantage of. He has the foe render rule as well. So if he Primal Furies, he gets AP -2 on his attacks.
That's really good.
2 units of 24 gores. One unit, the unit that the Great Shaman goes in, has the Vitriolic Totem, which gives them poisoned attacks. So 6 to hit auto wound, really nice.
Yeah.
And then you can take a great weapon on the champion, which is also great. I mean, you love that because like that's just another guy in there that can actually punch through armor.
Yeah.
And that rules. Gores also get +1 strength on the turn they charge, so they're all strength 4, which is really nice.
Yeah.
I've got 3 singles Tuskor chariots, again cheap unit. 3 5-man Warhound units, again like Warriors of Chaos. You can see there's a correlation here, except I keep going. Then I have 2 units of 5 Harpies. So I've even got more chaff to stick in your way or kill war machines.
Yeah.
A unit of 5 Minotaurs with full command, light armor, and shield. So they have a 5 up save.
Mm-hmm.
And that also lets them take advantage of foe render. So they're AP -2 and they pass their test. And then we have a unit of 4 Dragon Ogres with heavy armor and great weapons. And these guys are another unit of armor hunters. And they're tough enough that they can... I mean, they're heavy cavalry and for almost every way. And Dragon Ogres get stomp too, so they get to stomp twice on people, which is
perfect.
Awesome.
You kind of let us in on an interesting chariots, so 3 single chariots, but you can do something with chariots that even if you're not Tomb Kings in this edition, that's pretty interesting.
Like, you mean joining chariots? Or
yeah, so you can actually have joining chariots together.
Some characters can join some chariot units.
Exactly.
But usually this is armies that can take like many chariots in one unit.
Yeah.
So high elves and orcs and goblins can take you can take a unit of 5 wolf chariots if you want to. And you can join a goblin character in with the wolf chariots too. Tomb Kings, you can also do some cool chariot shit with that, but you always been able to do that. And then also Tyrnok chariots for high elves, you can take 4 of them in a unit as well, and you can join that with the character.
That's a lot of impact hits.
Absolutely, yes. Now, the nice thing about Beastmen chariots is they're heavy chariots. So they get AP -2 on their impact hits, which is really nice. Light chariots don't get AP on their impact hits, and while still totally fine because that's a lot of strength 4, a lot of strength 5 hits, like you're not going to feel them quite as hard as you're going to feel getting run over by Tuskors.
Yep, that's so cool.
But yeah, good list. It hits, it punches, and it fights really well.
All right. Just get that Minotaur army. That's all I'm thinking about. Just put more Minotaur. Just more.
Yeah, I haven't messed around with that 100 to see what it actually looks like. But you can make a Doom Pole that is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
The other thing I'd like to try out too that I haven't is there's rules for a Centaur Chieftain character, which is new. Which is pretty cool. And I'd like to try out some Centaurs because Centaurs are skirmishing cavalry, and there's a bunch of weird stuff that you can do with those.
They're still heavily drinking on the job, I think.
Yeah, they're still drunk. They still have the drunk rule, but it's not very impactful, I don't think.
All right.
Tomb Kings of Khemri.
Ooh.
They're not bad guys. These guys are good guys. What are they doing in here? These guys, all these
they're undead risen from the dead. They're mummies risen from the dead.
Dickie, these guys are builders. They're not destroyers.
Well,
unless you're talking about Destroyer of Eternities, and that's a totally different thing.
Okay.
But we're going to talk about 3 of the best units for Tomb Kings of Khemri. First up, I've got Skeleton Horse Archers. I think these guys are insane.
Definitely not the models, but let's talk about the rules.
Yeah, the models are kind of insane in that they look like kind of like if you were to like roll some Play-Doh like between your hands and then like take your fingernail and like draw the lines on where the bones separate, like that's basically the sculpt.
You know what? I don't want to yuck someone's yum, so let's talk about the rules.
Dude, I'm taking them. Like, let me tell you this. I'm building a lot of horse archers here. There's a lot of horse archers being built at the McDevitt household.
Oh, boy.
So they're cheap. They're like 11 points a model. They have a bow that always hits on a 5. because they still have arrows of Aspis. They are scout and skirmish, and they have a rule called reserve move. Reserve move means that after they move normally, in the shooting phase, after everyone is shot, they can move again.
Oh, they have a shoot and scoot.
Yeah. So Tomb King's Chariots have that as well, which is really nice. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it kind of makes up for them being a little bit pillow fisted.
Okay.
Really cool. I think they're a great place to put characters that you don't want to fight stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can't march block them, and they can just move away 16 inches in any direction, 360 degrees, because they're skirmishers. So they're going to be really tough to catch, I think. The next one I have on here is Tomb Scorpions. Tomb Scorpions are almost exactly like you remember them if you remember them in any edition of Warhammer. They're awesome.
So amazing.
They're a little monster. They're toughness 5, 3 wounds. They have 4 attacks. They're strength 5. They're -2 AP on their attacks, and their claws have killing blow and monster slayer.
They're snip.
So yeah, that big giant that you have, they can cut off his balls, and then he's done. He's dead.
And they come up from the ground.
Yeah. So they have it. You can, for 5 points, you can buy them the Ambushers rule, so they come in there. But also, Tomb Kings have a rule that Lich Priests have called Arise from the Sands, or not Arise from the Sands, but like Entomb from the Sands. And basically, ambushing units, you can pass a leadership check and put them anywhere within 12 inches of the Lich Priest during the command phase. They can't charge, but they can move normally after they come up.
Oh, that's really good.
So it lets you put some units in really weird places.
Yeah.
And then finally, the Casket of Souls. What a model.
So just the history lesson. I used to put my army and turn it around when I was fighting this in 6th edition. What does it do now?
So you don't have to worry about that anymore. That's not a thing. So it has 2 bound spells that it can cast at power level 3, and then it also gives itself a +1 to bound spells. So they're actually power level 4. So the first one you cast in your command phase is called Light of Protection, and it's a remains in play spell. And what that does is every Tomb King's unit within 18 inches of it gets a 6+ ward save and -1 to hit.
Oh, that's really good. Yep.
Like full stop. It's that ability by itself is an amazing ability.
Yeah, -1 to hit.
Yeah, you have to be within 24 inches to try and dispel it. If you have a level 4, if you have a level 2, you have to be within 18. So, like, if it's in the back of your lines, it's hard to get to. And the other spell it has is called Light of Death. Now, if it casts Light of Death, Light of Protection goes away.
Okay.
So you probably what I do typically is I go for Light of Protection. If they dispel it, then I cast Light of Death.
Yeah.
And Light of Death is you pick a unit if they take a leadership test within 36 inches in line of sight. If they pass the leadership test, they take D3 strength 3 hits at like AP -1. If they fail the leadership test, they take D6 strength 6 hits with no armor save. No, sorry, D6 +3 strength 6 hits with no armor save.
That's a lot.
Yeah. That's gonna hurt. That's gonna wound all the toughness 4 knights.
My knights don't want any part of that. Yeah.
No, they don't.
So
it's really versatile. The other thing that it does that's very important is all your priests within 12 inches of it get +1 to cast.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Especially on a 2d6 system.
Right. +1 to cast is hugely impactful.
Yeah.
So I try and upgrade stuff to level 2 or level 4 when I can. But we'll see. I don't find points for that all the time.
Okay.
So what is this army for magic items? Oh my god, there's so many good magic items. Let's see. The magic item that I probably like the most, I'm going to talk about Destroyer of Eternities. That's not on my list, but I like Destroyer of Eternities. It's a magical great weapon with killing blow. Mm-hmm. And instead of it's very expensive. I think it's like 65 points. It's a magical great weapon with killing blow. And instead of attacking with it, if you don't want to, you can just do D6 auto hits to what you're fighting. So just roll a d6, you get that many hits. I think that's incredibly good.
Yep.
It's very difficult to It's very difficult to deal with an item that has such a high strength and good AP value. I think it's AP -3 and killing blow. It's really good in a challenge situation because you're probably not going to hit with more than 2 of his attacks anyway. So as long as you're not rolling a 1, you're getting the same or better than what you would get anyway. So I really like the Destroy of Eternities, Dickie.
Seems pretty good.
And then for spells, they've got 3 unique spells. They've got Incantation of the Desert Wind, which gives everybody within, depending on how good you cast it, it's either 1 unit or every unit within your command range reserve move.
Oh,
so and then Cursed Blades is really good too. It lets you reroll 1s to hit for every unit within your caster's command range.
Rerolls is pretty good in this game.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how do Tomb Kings play? They sound really good, right? They have some pretty good strengths. They're undead.
Why is undead a strength?
Well, they never break.
Oh.
So instead of taking break tests, you lose models equal to the amount that you've lost by combat by. However, Tomb Kings have a bunch of ways to mitigate this. So the Battle Standard Bearer, for instance, every unit within 12 loses by D3 less. And then almost all of the characters have a rule called Indomitable, which means that they lose by less equal to their Indomitable value. Well, all the heroes except for the Necrotect are Indomitable 2. So basically any unit with a character in it loses by 2 less already. Okay, so
big deal.
Yeah, it's very good. And then they have a lot of ways to buff their army. As we talked about, there's tons of ways that you can do stuff. You have My Will Be Done, which lets the Tomb King or Prince pick between 3 different effects if he passes a leadership test. And that's +1 weapon skill or plus D3 to initiative or movement. He gets to pick those during the strategy phase every turn on what he wants to do. Also, the Battle Standard Bearer lets you reroll leadership tests for Tomb Kings, which is critical because that ability is based on leadership tests. We talked about Entomb from the Sands being based on leadership tests. Also, Arise, which is the way that they raise new models back, is a special rule and not tied to a spell. That's a leadership test. So there's a lot of ways that you can you want to maximize those leadership tests. So a Battle Standard Bearer, I feel like, is almost compulsory in a Tomb Kings list.
Okay. How does the resin is an interesting mechanic that Tomb Kings have. So can you let us know how to do that?
Yeah, sure. No, it's pretty easy. So basically you pass a leadership test and you pick a unit that's within 12 inches of the Lich Priest. Now, depending on what kind of unit it is, it raises a certain number of wounds. You have to start with models that are wounded in the unit first before you can start with before bringing back dead models.
Okay.
So, if you're infantry, you bring back your wizard level plus D3. If you're cavalry, like heavy cavalry or light cavalry, it's wizard level +1. If you're monstrous cavalry, or monstrous infantry or chariots, you bring back the wizard level in wounds.
Okay.
And then if you're anything else like behemoth, war machine, monstrous creature, it's 1 wound per attempt.
Okay.
Which is pretty cool, and they have a lot of ways to do it. All the mortuary priests have that, obviously, and then also you can, if you're playing the royal host rule in the appendix, you can buy an upgrade that lets your Tomb King do that, and Cetra can do it as well.
Okay, so it's basically an attrition game. What it comes down to.
They're going to try and grind you out, and just kind of delay as much as they can, and just try and squeak by getting points without you getting too many of their points.
Cool.
That's kind of how they win. But they have some weaknesses. They don't have armor. Again, like there's no real armor in this list. It's light armor, maybe heavy armor at best. I think the best save that the army can get, unless they're buying magic items, is 4+.
I'm looking at this picture, Danny, and there's not a lot of armor on these skeletons.
Well,
so...
it turns out, I don't know, skeletons may be disrupted by armor. I'm not really sure what's going on there. And then their stats are bad. Like their movement 4 on their infantry, their weapon skill and ballistic skill 2, strength 3, toughness 3 on a lot of stuff, although they do have some tougher units. And they can't march at all unless they have the fly keyword. Then they can march. But otherwise, they can't march.
Slow guys. They're just slow
guys. and that's okay. You know, you gotta be okay with it. You gotta let them take things at their own pace, and really kind of hammer things in there.
Got it.
Which is what we're going to talk about in my list now. The
Hammer
list
things
that
in there?
the list that I made now, this sample list, I'd like to point out, is a list that is from the Arcane Journal. So this is a mortuary cult list specifically, and not a grand army.
Okay.
I've been playing this because that's my favorite part of Tomb Kings, and so that's the part I really like. So I made this list with that in mind. The list is High Mortuary Priest, who is my general. He's level 4. He has Amulet of the Serpent, which gives his unit poisoned attacks, which is important for archers.
It sounds important for archers, yeah.
And then the Warding Splint gives him is heavy armor that wizards can wear, and also gives him a 5+ ward save. Now, every model in a Tomb King's army has regeneration.
Okay.
I guess I should point that out too. That's kind of
pretty important. Yeah.
That's pretty important. So regen works very similar to a ward save. It's a save that you take in addition to armor and in addition to ward. It does give combat res even if you save the wounds that are regenerated. So even though you're like kind of saving models and stuff like that, you will still maybe lose combat. If you kill the Hierophant, which is the highest wizard in the Tomb King army, then your whole army loses regeneration.
Okay.
Regeneration doesn't go away from flaming attacks naturally. You also have to have the flammable special rule, which all the Tomb King characters do. And they have an extra special rule called dry as dust, which means on a 4+ they take an extra wound from flaming attacks. So flaming attacks are really good against these guys.
They're mummies. They're just mummies.
They're mummies. Yeah. That's right. And then I have 2 level 1 mortuary priests on skeleton steeds.
Yeah.
And then in this list, you can take a mortuary priest with a battle standard.
Oh.
And so I have another level 1 with a battle standard also on a skeleton steed.
That's a lot of resing, Danny.
It's and one of the nice rules about this particular list is they get +1 to the resurrection for +1 for resing, so they heal an extra wound.
Oh dear.
Then I have a Tomb Prince with just a great weapon. He's got light armor and a great weapon. He's just hanging out there. He's real cheap at 90 points, but he's hard to kill. He's toughness 5 and has 3 wounds, so he's annoying, and I can heal him.
Yep.
And then I've got the unit of 24 skeleton warriors with light armor, shields, and the war banner, as well as I just gave them a standard and champion because I didn't feel like I needed the musician, because if I tie combat anyway, like whatever, I'm not going to lose any wounds.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
A unit of 10 horse archers that all the priests go into.
Oh, okay.
So now you got to try and catch this like real squirrely, like fast cav unit that's also shooting 10 poison bow shots at you every turn.
Mm-hmm.
So they're trying to maybe kill a chaff unit or something like that. A unit of 4 Shopti, because they're a decent monstrous infantry unit, and I can take them as a core choice in Mortuary Cult if I want to.
Yep.
A unit of 3 Tomb Swarms. These guys are a good blocker. It's 15 wounds worth of stuff to try and get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
2 single Tomb Scorpions with ambushers, and there's an upgrade for this list called the Terrors Below.
Okay.
And so when these guys arise from the sands within 8 inches of an infantry unit,
that's scary.
I get to make them take initiative tests equal to the unit strength of my unit that comes up.
Yeah.
So for a Scorpion, it's 4. Every test they fail is a wound with no armor saves or regen saves as they pull you into the sand.
That's not nice.
Yep. Not too bad on the Scorpions. They're just nice little monsters. But on the unit of 8 Necro Serpents, which is a new unit, and these are the serpents that the Necropolis Knights ride on.
Uh-huh.
But you can buy them by themselves in Mortuary Cult, which is pretty cool. That's kind of a nice little thing.
Yeah.
They also have this, and so that's unit strength 24. So I make somebody take 24 initiative tests or die when they come up. And then also there's this giant 24 wound block of dudes that's going to stand in front of you and fight's pretty good.
Okay.
And then
I'm gonna say something to you after this, Danny.
Okay.
Okay.
Then we have 2 Screaming Skull catapults.
Yeah.
With Skulls of the Foe. Screaming Skulls, whenever they hit a unit, they automatically have to take a panic test or run away.
Yeah.
And then Skulls of the Foe, wherever the center of the template lands, all enemy units within 2d6 of that are -1 leadership.
That seems to be a good ability when you're trying to make people run away.
Yep.
Nice.
And then we have the Casket.
All right. So, Danny, you just created a Dwellers Below. with your necroservants.
Yeah, but so the nice thing about this is that it doesn't target characters, so you can't have your character fall into a pit. But yeah, basically, I'm gonna suck people into the sand, hopefully, and they don't come back up.
That's not nice.
But this is a shooting. I think this is a shooting army, kind of. It's like very selectively fight stuff, and it kind of basically holds people off with units like the Ushabti and the Skeleton Warriors to try and like limit the amount of points that somebody can get out of me while trying to maximize the points that I get out of other people by using, Tomb Scorpions to kill characters, and like the Swarms and the Skeleton Warriors and the Ushabti holding people off or alternately slamming people in the terms of Ushabti. But yeah, it's a pretty versatile list. I think it has some good matchups, but it has some bad ones too. So especially if you can kill 10 skeleton horse archers.
If you have that ability, then you should be okay. I was gonna ask, back in the day, when you killed the general, the army would crumble. Is that a similar mechanic in this?
So no. How it works is if you kill the Hierophant, that starts to happen.
Okay.
And that's the way it worked in Tomb Kings as opposed to vampire counts.
Yeah.
When you kill characters, and specifically only like royalty in Tomb Kings, they curse you. So you have to take a leadership test, or you take some extra hits, like strength 2 hits with no armor save kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's a really cool list.
That's kind of a wrap on Ravening Hordes. Those are the armies that are available in this particular box, or book, I should say, not a box. Yeah, right. I'll buy dude. If they release a Ravening Hordes box, I'm in. I'm gonna buy it. Yeah. Probably if it comes with all the miniatures for all these armies, I'm gonna want it anyway.
Well, obviously, they all sounded so cool. Like, I don't know about anyone else that's watching this, all 3 people, but I can think of an orc list from Danny's. I can definitely think of a Minotaurs list, and I can think of a really cool man. That Tomb King's Dweller Below trick. That's a pretty dirty trick. I think you could really have fun with that. I don't know if your opponent would have fun with it, but what's next? What are we doing next, Danny?
I think we're gonna review the Forces of Fantasy.
The good guys.
Yeah, the good guys.
The goody.
There's like 2 cool armies in there, maybe 3.
Why?
But like, we'll go over them. Not Bretonians, but we'll go over all the rest.
They're pretty cool. Awesome. Well, I'm so stoked for this, man.
Dude. Yeah, I am too. I'm very excited for Old World. This is like my favorite game, so I feel this still feels like Warhammer, which is amazing. I love ranks and flanks. I like a lot of the old models.
Yeah.
Especially now that I'm building some of them, they're not as bad as I thought they were. But yeah, I'm really
does something to your brain, and it changes the dopamine there.
I just get unreasonably excited about things that I've loved my entire life, Dickie. What can I say?
That's awesome. I'm really excited that we can get more content out for everyone, and I'm also really excited to get some games going. Man, I can't wait to play some of this. Oof. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Stay tuned. We're going to try to get as many videos out in the next little bit. This one should release right on release day or pre-order day on Saturday. So please stay tuned. If you like this, please give us a thumbs up, add a comment, and see you later, guys.
It's time to step into the grim darkness with nerds gather talking Warhammer madness. Grim After Dark, the podcast with the hosts John, Danny, and Val, but they're not the most. Claiming to be experts, but it's all a facade. Talking about battles and dice rolls, they're all odd. Trying to sound cool with their Warhammer talk, but I'm here to expose. It's all just squawk. Nerds, everywhere I see talking Warhammer this, like it's a decree. But let me tell you, homie, it is all just a game in the